When I first moved here, when I first experienced New York, I was like, New York seems like a pretty happening place where all kinds of people just come in, but they all kind of meet around or dance a bit around a dance floor and a DJ experience under a disco ball. Well, I started up as a DJ in 1990, but I've been buying records since I was probably like 11, 12 years old, weekly allowance money, things like that. Worked at A1, Good Records, and then finally a position came open over at Academy. And they're like, what you're into versus like what you do and how you can play things. I mean, you're really very knowledgeable and you're a great buyer. So that's what kind of led me to being I think I'm going on almost 5 years there now, since 2014. Yeah, so it's been a while since I've been at this store. I try to avoid a lot of art or a lot of reviews of records and kind of bestseller lists. I think it's really best to find a great new experience by just going on instinct. And I think I just kind of take a risk and just kind of find what appeals to me and that could be anywhere from a 26 BPM range to a 165 or something, or 172. And I think it's, I like a lot of jazz music. I like the sensibility that comes from it. It's very free form. So I'm always looking for music that kind of takes something kind of classic, or that kind of sensibility, not particularly a sound, but elevates it. All right, so one of the biggest records that's left a huge impact on me, it was actually, I think I discovered it probably a few years after it was released. It was probably like 86, 87. When I came to New York, I finally managed to score a really decent copy, but it's Chris and Cozy Heartbeat. It's their first record that they did away from their CTI moniker. It's a really strange record. It's kind of like a DJ's or a music producer, anyone that's familiar with synthesizers and oscillators. The sequencing on this is really just can't be matched. It's a lot of weird, I wouldn't even call it gothic songs, but a lot of this band can be thrown into the gothic kind of category just because of their Throbbing Gristle affiliation, industrial stuff. But it's beyond that, and it really kind of shows what someone can do when they just get lost in building synthesizers in their gear, but also making really great, exceptional, like cosmic kind of music. Cosmic in the sense that it takes you very much out of your reality and into some other type of computer-like or robotic kind of dream. So it's a record that has like some tribal moments, some deep house, like proto-deep house moments. It's a really huge record, big record in my life. This record came out in 1978. I was blown away when I first saw this. I picked up a copy in 1985 because I could finally find one. I think a lot of DJs or people that bought this record because they would hear it mixed into a lot of electro sets and whatnot. But Kraftwerk, Man Machine. The design, everything about it is very German, very Bauhaus, very kind of like a modern record, and how it's like left an impression on today's kind of design field and whatnot. So yeah, Kraftwerk is, they have like three other records that are really heavy in a big DJ playlist, but Neon Lights is like a really huge Wrecked favorite, and something when we go and do down-tempo sets, Wrecked will always drop Neon Lights, and it really just kind of brings a great moment to the dance floor. Yeah, we want to start a party within the queer underground that would actually embrace an underground aesthetic and not just pushing commercial circuits, kind of more exclusive kind of like male-only type events. So we decided to start a party called Rocket, and 3 years later, we got the opportunity to start a party called Wrecked, and it was in the basement in the Lower East Side / East Village. And we just wanted to continue the same thing, but be a lot more, since we had the entire night to ourselves, we decided to go ahead and come up with a different type of flavor to what we were doing already and make it much more of a heavier, pounding kind of night, you know, very, I don't know, since then it's become quite an enigma of like, you never know what you're going to get, but when you go there, you lose track of time, you get lost in a lot of different musical styles, and that's where we kind of want to keep it. Yeah. And this one is Paul McCartney. It's a single that was only, I think they only made like 2,500 copies of this, so it failed to chart. The the A side is Temporary Secretary, which is like, it's from McCartney 2, an album where he experimented more with electronica. The first one, he just kind of threw in like more kind of like Mellotron sounds and stuff like that. But this particular record, he went full on with kind of sounding like Yellow Metric Orchestra or something. And it has a B-side called Secret Friend. And it was a track that apparently David Mancuso would play at the Lot. But if you listen to it, it kind of sounds a lot of like what Washed Out originally started doing, a lot of like what the mid-2000s kind of like electronica kind of guys did. And if they don't know about it and they hear it, they'd be like, oh my God, this would be a great way for me to learn how to do it better. So when you hear it, it's kind of like I don't know, it's kind of like there's like robots in the tropics kind of like having their own cosmic moment or something. It's a really great record. If you ever see a copy, definitely get it. And this next record is a 12-inch by Gina Sochi called Turn It Around. And I love a lot of sad, melancholy pop, especially when it goes with the synthesizer and doesn't have, I don't know, I guess kind of the message of this could be somewhat hokey, but there's a deep sadness to his voice in this track. And I think there's a good reason why it wasn't very popular on certain dance floors. It's almost too rock pop of a song, and he threw it into a very disco synth pop kind of context. And to me, it's kind of like, that's just even more better, because then you have something that's not limited to just being a dance floor, peak time, you know. If anytime anybody plays it and people leave the floor, I'm usually the only one dancing to it. But, and when I play it, sometimes it's kind of like more of an opener or closer kind of song, but people really kind of feel it. And every time I hear it, I always pick up on different kind of notes on his synth programming and guitar shifts that happen within it as well. And last record here is one of my holy grails, one of my favorites. It's by Kevin Harrison. He was in a couple of post-punk bands, but then in the early 80s, he decided to go and do break out on his own and do some more experimental kind of, I guess, experimental pop, electronic kind of records. And here he works with a female vocalist on a track. And I don't know, there's just, these three songs coming together on one EP is very representative of what the early 80s post-punk, Cherry Red, Rough Trade singles kind of thing, movement was all about. Just kind of working with really cool kind of like, I guess like German design kind of ideas, very post-Kraftwerk, if you will, but it's almost kind of like Rudy Collin meets Brian Eno with a lot of like lo-fi gear. So it's a really kind of like stripped down kind of synth pop record, and it was a huge record for Daniel Baldelli, who also did a re-edit of it that appeared on a mix he put out probably like a decade ago. I got turned on to his re-edit, but I'd heard one track off this EP before, and then once I found a nice clean copy, I decided that I could die tomorrow and be happy. Yeah, so those are some of my favorite records. Thanks.